Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Matchfit podcast. I'm Darren, your host for today. Today's guest, Simeon Jackson, former international player, former Premier League player. He has played at various clubs in the English Football League. He's played up in Scotland as well. This is a two-parter, so make sure you stay tuned for both parts. Due to some technical difficulties, we had to do two recordings, but trust me when I tell you there is words of wisdom and golden nuggets all the way throughout this conversation from Simeon. I hope you enjoy this as much as I did. Remember, at Matchfit Football on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Simeon, welcome to the podcast. Delighted to get you on the show.
Thanks for having me, man. Thanks for having me.
You're an incredibly busy man. Of course, congratulations on the birth of the newest little addition to your family. You're still
Thank
playing
you.
professional football. You are a father. You're coaching. You're doing a bit of everything. Tell me what it's like. How is life going in 2021 for Simeon Jackson?
Yeah, it's pretty full on, man. It's full on. Yeah, it's trying to balance everything from kind of family and home life to still playing, as well as getting involved with coaching and helping out at the club as well. So yeah, it's pretty full gas.
Obviously, something you're still incredibly passionate about and you enjoy. You've had a phenomenal long career and it's still going. What is the secret to your success and your longevity in your footballing career?
Um, no, I appreciate that, man. It's just down to your habits and your routines. To be honest, I think for me, I kind of figured out that that's what it took. And then after getting some success with that from early on, in academy days and coming through and becoming a professional, you start to realize that it is a lifestyle, and it is kind of how you look after yourself. And I think from then, the habits and routines stuck from there, and you just try and be consistent the best way you can and take the highs and the lows, and just see it through.
It's interesting because those habits, those patterns and even those behaviors that you've learned maybe from a young age that you've implemented all throughout your career, was that something you gained through experience as you progressed through your career, or is there different stages of your career? Maybe as a young player coming through an academy, you've seen an older player do something and you were able to take that and add it to your game, or was it a constant learning progress throughout your career?
Yeah, 100, all of those things. I think I was lucky in the environment. I remember when I first got into the full time environment, moving here to the UK and being able to train every day and watch pros, and you just start to pick up the do's and don'ts, really. And having that as a young player coming through a club and being able to watch the first team players and speak to them and ask them questions, you start to see the ones that have the good habits and do the right things end up having, at that stage would have had a career. So you started to pick up really soon, okay, this is what it looks like in terms of, if I want to be in this game for a while, there's things that I'm going to have to do and get used to and adjust. And yeah, and then constantly adapting, dealing with the challenges that come up with being in professional football, and playing, not playing, injuries, in and out of form, all these different things that come up, managing your personal life. Yeah, you have to definitely pick it up and learn as you go as well.
And it's something that you mentioned is when you moved to the UK, and you have a very interesting journey because you grew up in Canada, in Ontario, which for half the year is snow covered and -0 and incredibly cold and probably hard to get outside and get playing football. But
Yeah.
you eventually moved to the UK. So tell me a little bit about growing up in Canada. You're falling in love with football, and then obviously how you got the move to the UK. Tell me about the journey to professional
Yeah.
football.
So it just started from watching it on TV, watching Soccer Saturday as it was on TSN. And just, I remember seeing Man United and watching the Premier League, seeing a bit of Serie A, fall in love with the teams and how they were keeping in track on how they were doing. And then you just got obsessed with it, wanted to play it all the time. sign for your first few teams, kind of house league level, rep level. And yeah, you just start to work on it as much as you can, obsessed with it, competition. And then I think I remember getting to about the age of 11, 12, where, I started to get recognized for playing, and some scouts would approach, my aunt and uncle, who I was living with. And yeah, you just start to realize, okay, maybe there's something in here for me. And, over the next few years after that, started to take it a bit more serious, and realize that if I did want to have a good go, I'd have to move to Europe, because at that time in Canada, there was no professional league, there was no, professional clubs or any sort of full-time environment. And I was lucky enough to have had a taste of it from taking part in a few teams that would travel over to England and play some games against, Premier League clubs. And as soon as you got that first taste of it, I was like, wow, like this is where you need to be, playing against, top players, being able to train every day. And I remember coming to England and seeing everything green. The pitches are green. It was like March, and we're used to still having snow around that time. And yeah, my mindset just kind of shifted from there, just knowing that there was a big gap between grassroots football in Canada at the time and where I wanted to go. So as a family, we decided that I should move over, and yeah, and then I had to start from scratch and build my way up from there.
Was that difficult when you moved across and beginning to readjust? You mentioned how it was so different from Canada to the UK, and how grassroots in Canada was so different to where you wanted to be in the UK. What was that transition like for you, and what hurdles did you face?
Yeah, it was everything, man. Like, it was just a whole different world. I was playing in Canada, as you said. We played indoor, during the winter months, because, as we couldn't go outside and play. And then coming over here, where they're playing throughout most of the year. Kids were training, 6 to 8 hours a week. In Canada, I was probably only doing 4. And playing games. So there was a big gap. And I just had to learn really quick, had to pick things up really quick on the pitch, as well as, the whole lifestyle change and moving to a new country and whole new way of living. I remember seeing people eating beans on toast. I didn't know what was going on. I was so confused. Just trying to adjust the best way I could. But it was, yeah, a lot of challenges. But luckily I had a good family support network that, looked after me. I moved over and lived with family, and they were crucial in terms of helping me adjust and getting used to things.
It's interesting. The beans on toast, it's a staple of every British person's diet at some stage. And you were lucky, you said you were able to move over and live with family. Was that support system integral in your journey to where you are now?
100%, 100%. Just having, my parents and my aunt and uncle, who I grew up with in Canada, backing me all the way, supporting me, giving me the opportunity to move over. Some parents and, guardians wouldn't have taken that, that risk, that chance. I was 15, and, was able to come over and have a crack at, trying to make it as a professional footballer. And we knew the journey was going to be long and have a lot of challenges, but to have your family backing you throughout the way, financially and helping you out, emotionally, meant everything, was very important.
Another thing that comes across whenever you move from Canada to the UK, and it's probably a very different thing for you. You mentioned about Canada playing inside, and then those winter months, then the UK you're playing outside. The different types of training. For example, in Canada, and I hope I'm not putting words in your mouth or assuming things here, but in Canada, there was probably a lot of, you were seen for your natural ability, whereas maybe when you came to the UK, coaches were like, "Oh, that was good, but we need to work on this," and they were able to pinpoint certain aspects of your game. Was that something that you struggled with at the start, or was that something you enjoyed? Or tell me about that transition.
Yeah, no, you're spot on. Yeah, in Canada at the time, it was very, what your strengths, what you're good at. And then obviously coming to England was very more technical, a lot more physical. And yeah, it was like, yeah, you're good at this and this, but you need to work on this. And, this is the type if you want to be a striker, this is how strikers play over here. You're going to be on the shoulder. You're going to have to hold the ball up. You're going to have to compete. So there was a lot of things I had to learn quickly, and implement in my game. And just that whole playing catch up from, there's a lot of guys that had come through the young academies and were kind of, the next best thing and expected to get scholarships and contracts. And I'm just in there, just, trying to float, and adjusting to the training. And yeah, in Canada, obviously, indoor training is a lot different. We used to play in uh, kind of hockey rink arenas turned into, with the Astro, and you could play off the boards and stuff. So, and obviously you come to England, there's none of that. So yeah, there was a lot of adjustments that you had to make, but I think that's just natural at any level, and any country or where you are. There's different styles of playing and different formations and tactics, and these are things you just have to learn and adapt, especially as a young player when you're trying to get through.
I think the word adapt that you used is so key because at that young age, not only moving country, but you're training with different clubs, you're finding your way in a new country, in a new culture, and you're having to adapt to different styles, different techniques, different coaching styles, everything that's kind of going on all at once while you grow at the same time. You're going up through your teenage years. Was there any bit of coaching advice or anything spoken to you from a player, from a veteran or anything like that, that bit piece of advice that you took to heart and still serves you well to this day from that young age?
Yeah, loads, man. I think just, yeah, having the right people around you is massively important, and having good coaches as well. And there's always things that you can pick up and take with you. And I think some of the stuff I heard early on was just about finding out what I was good at and tailoring my game around my strengths, and kind of never losing that as my foundation, no matter where I was, what team I was playing for, whatever style of play that was coming. There was always that foundation of okay, this is what I'm good at. I'm quick, I've pace, I can get on the end of things, and I love scoring goals. So focus on these things no matter what else comes around you. And then yeah, as you get older and you're at different stages, you start to realize that it's a whole journey, and you just have to take it bit by bit, and obviously work hard, but try and just get in these good habits from an early age of what you like in training, and what you like off the pitch, and the discipline that you need as well. A lot of distractions and things come up that you have to be focused on, and know what you're trying to achieve out of it. So, and you yeah, as I was saying, you pick that up from different coaches and different experiences that you have along the way.
A word that you use there, discipline, is amazing because it's so vital, I think, to succeed. And when I was doing a little bit of research into you preparing for this podcast, I came across the fact that your first ever job was in McDonald's. So how at one stage does Simeon Jackson, who's working in McDonald's, who is obsessed with football since he has seen it on TV and who wants to go pro, when does that I'm making it pro, I'm going pro, when does that penny drop or that decision happen in your life? Was there a particular moment, or was it a case of progression as you were getting older and people were taking notice?
Yeah, no, that's I was actually telling the story today. It happened when that penny drop moment for me was, even though I'd moved over, and I was like, right, I don't care what I have to do, I don't care how long I have to train, I don't know how far, I don't care how far I have to travel. I've traveled all the way around, across the world. I can travel another 3-4 hours to get to wherever I need to go. But the moment for me came when I was living with my gran at the time, and she was like, "Look, yeah, you're here for football, but you also need to go and find a job and work, and you need to go to college." And I had to go up in the high street and apply for the job, and go and apply for the college. And I remember I sat down. It was the day I went to the college was actually one of the orientation days, and I actually got let in on the course, and they said to come in and sit, have a walk around and go in the class and stuff. And I remember sitting down, and I asked the tutor, I said, "Oh, how long are we here for?" He said, "Oh yeah, we're here from 9 to 5 during the day, and And immediately as she said that, I was like 9 to 5. And I just did the math in my head. I was like, how can I then try and work on my game if I'm going to be here 9 to 5 every day? And I remember asking, when was, and listen, guys, I'm telling this story, but listen, just for that, don't take it as, drop out of school. But I literally, the next break I had, I walked out and I remember turning back, looking at the building and just saying to myself, I'm never going back in that place. And for me, that was the moment where I kind of just set my stall down. I was like, look, now I have to just put everything into making, because this is what I want to do. And then, I had to apply for the job, got a job at McDonald's, and then was working there on the weekends and on the Sunday, as well as training during the week. I was playing for about 2 or 3 teams just to get my hours up and playing. And then I ended up getting a trial at Rushden and Diamonds. And for me, that was like, okay, this is it. Now, I'm not letting this slip out of my hands. I've sacrificed so much and was on trial for about 2 months, 3 months. Sometimes it's a penny drop moment where you just know what you want to do and you're just prepared to risk whatever you need to risk to get there.
It's really interesting because one of the moments that you talked about there is when you walked out of the school building and you looked back and went, I'm not going back there. And something we talked about earlier was the support of your family. And you mentioned that your granny was sort of saying, get out, get a job, go to college. We talked about the support of the family and how you couldn't be where you are without them. But when you decided to walk away from college and say, I'm not going back there, I'm going everything into football, was there a clash with the family? Did the
Oh
family
yeah,
doubt you? Tell me about
yeah,
that bit.
yeah, 100%. Didn't go down well. Didn't go down well at all. I think there was a lot of, everyone was upset with me. Really, they're like, how you can do that? You need your education, and just, this is not what you're supposed to do. And I just remember saying, kind of defending myself and just being like, look, like I'm, there's going to be an opportunity for me to continue my education if I get a scholarship. So for me, that's what I'm, what I'm putting all my eggs in that one basket. And, people say don't do that. But for me, there was nothing more certain to me about that. I wasn't going back in that building. So I was prepared to take the slack from the family. And to be fair, I think for me, it did happen in the next few months and it didn't, drag on past that. So, I was able to get into education as well as playing, and that kind of, they were much more happier after that. But yeah, that initial phase was very very sticky.
So, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. This is part 2 of the Simeon Jackson Matchfit Football Podcast. We had technical difficulties the first time, but for all your footballing needs, we are back again for part 2. Simeon, you're just in from training, from coaching, just before we get right into the mindset stuff. You've had a busy day. How are you doing today?
Yeah, I'm good, man. I'm good. No, thanks for having me on again. Yeah, second time around. But yeah, no, it's been good. Yeah, I had a good session with the boys today. So yeah, can't wait to dive into pick up where we left off, really.
Yeah, all good. Well, we're going to get right into the mindset stuff and the sort of the meat on the bone. And where we kind of dropped off last time is we were talking about motivation, and I was sort of asking you about what motivates you to seek high performance and to seek elite performance and to operate at that level. What is it that really gets you out of bed every day to want to pursue greatness, so to speak?
Yeah, I think the motivation one, obviously, it varies from person to person, from player to player. And I think for me, the stage that I'm at, just that continual learning and wanting to better myself, and having a family now and kids, and it's you kind of want to leave a legacy, and when you're looking at it from this side of your career, you kind of just want to get the best out of yourself for as long as you can. So for me, it's those habits that I've built over the years, the 1% and trying to execute as best as I can. Those are just habits and routines now that are just kind of carrying me on throughout and hopefully they stay with me till the rest of my career. It gets to a stage now where if you're dropping off for whatever reason, or things are going so well, you kind of have your kind of reset buttons that you just press that kind of get you back into the right frame and keep you going. So yeah, for me, it's family, and it's just ending my career on the highest level that I can.
It's a phenomenal experience, a phenomenal career that you've had thus far. And one of the key components that I like to touch on is not only just training, but individual training. And I know last time, and it was a bit interrupted last time, but specifically, I wanted to touch on when you write a contract, you've done a lot of work individually to stay fit, stay sharp, stay in shape, and that really helped you. When you find a new club, talk to me about those periods because that has to be hard mentally on you, physically as well, going in between clubs and managing to stay fit. So tell me about those periods and how you overcome and overcame those challenges.
Oh, 100%. I was actually having this chat with one of the boys at Chelmsford recently. He's at Watford. He's out of contract at the end of the season. He can't sign anywhere until till January now for the window to reopen. And I was just sharing with him my experiences of, being out of contract, being in the summer, that kind of mental test of, okay, you're in kind of the unknown. You don't know what's around the corner, but you have to make sure that you're ready and at a level when that phone call comes in. You're jumping on a train, jumping on a flight sometimes, and you need to be like at peak level, ready to go. Or you're going straight into a trial game or training or whatever. And for me, it was just kind of having that routine, and this is what I touched on last time is, with the Matchfit programs, just having that kind of guide to go back to. On those days where you kind of have this mental battle with yourself. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll do my session later, or yeah, I know I need to train, but what do I actually need to do, and how am I going to get the best out of today? And having that guide to work off. For me, the 90-day program was the best thing ever because I knew for the next 3 months I knew exactly what I was doing every day, and it took out that mental challenge of which you do have. You have those days where you wake up and like, okay, I know I need to go, but instead of am I just going to go for a run or do ball work or like what do I actually do? And then before you know it, you've missed that window that is optimal training. That first stage in the morning, and you're like, oh, I'll do it in the afternoon, and then something else comes up, and you just feel off balance. Whereas when you're in your full-time environment at your club, you know what you're doing, you go and you train. So it's trying to get yourself in that routine and in that discipline, even though you don't know when it's coming. It could be 3 weeks, 6 weeks, a month, like 2 months. You don't know. So having something to refer back to is very important.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And I think another key component, of that is you're almost mimicking sort of what you'd be doing at a club anyway. You're just obviously doing it as an individual, maybe rather than a collective or in a team environment, but you're doing that, you're treating yourself as a signed professional, as if you are with a signed professional. So that switch is easier, to go off as soon as you sign for that club. It's business as usual because you've already been doing the work.
100%. I think you start to appreciate more coaches, and the when coaches are putting on sessions, you just turn up as a player. You're not thinking about how it's set up and what you're trying to get from it. You're just out there and you're just trying to work on yourself and get the best out of the session for yourself. When you're trying to put those sessions on for yourself, it's completely different. And you come away from it with a whole different mindset, and that appreciation for when you're in that environment of, okay, I didn't have to set up these cones. I didn't have to, time myself. I can just go out and play. And yeah, I think for any player that's going through that challenge of in between clubs or waiting to get their chance and want to make sure that they're at the right level and they're doing the right things, because there's so much things out there, man. You could take any program from anywhere and go and do 5Ks and all that stuff, but is it really detailed? Is it really kind of specific for your position or for football, so to speak? So it's it's having that kind of expertise behind you that can guide you through it, man, because those times are really, really challenging.
They are challenging, and it brings it back to, that mental toughness, and you almost that plan, having that plan in place and knowing yourself to know that you need a plan in place. And specifically the mental side of the game, because the physical side is the physical side. It's like everyone who goes professional know there's a physical give that they have to give, a physical sacrifice of their body they have to give to the game. But the mental side is so uniquely different, I find anyway, and that's the side that fascinates me. Um,
Hmm.
Talk to me about the importance of having a strong mindset and being in the right frame of mind as a professional footballer.
Yeah, so you touched on it there. You know that there's a physical sacrifice, but you can also say there is a mental sacrifice as well. And that mental sacrifice is continually keeping yourself in the right frame of mind. And it's difficult to kind of talk about, because it's easier to grasp that whole physical. You're putting yourself through it every day. The equivalent to that in terms of the mindset sacrifice is staying disciplined in your thoughts, staying disciplined in your routine, staying disciplined in, okay, if it's not going so well, I'm still going to try and pull the positives out of this and learn from it to take myself to the next level. And that is a sacrifice, because you can easily go into a whirlwind either way. Things aren't going so well, you're not scoring, or you're struggling with your fitness or whatever. Those can then start to accumulate, and you can get into that mindset and that habit easily, just off of one mistake. Something doesn't go your way, and then it's like boom, you just trigger back into these negative thoughts and that. So to have that kind of discipline and be able to make that sacrifice of, okay, I'm gonna switch off from all the distractions that are around. Little things like being on Instagram, being on socials, man, like that. If you look at your time you're spending on your phone every day, and I mean, now I'm a slave to it. I have to admit, but I do try and keep tabs on it. But when I was kind of in a couple of years ago, before I even knew about Instagram, I always looked and I was like, how are you spending this much time on this one, app? Like, I could be mentally rehearsing about, scoring goals or performance, or using that time mentally to do other things. So just like the physical side, where okay, I'm going in the gym for 45 minutes, an hour, and I know what I'm getting out of it. You do have to also discipline yourself mentally, in your day-to-days, and how you're thinking about things and what you're doing.
I love the topic of discipline. I think it's so vitally important for a footballer, and it's a fascinating topic because everyone disciplines themselves, slightly differently to a degree, but everyone obviously needs to know their own body and what works for them and what works for their career and where they are at. One of the key words you used when you were responding there was the word confidence. And as a footballer and as a goal scorer, as a striker, how big a role does confidence play? And when confidence isn't high, how do you get over that hurdle to keep disciplined, to keep focused, and to keep doing what you're doing?
Yeah, so that's a big one, man. That's something I study like inside out, because as a striker, that's part and parcel. People like say, oh, he's confident, or he's lacking confidence. When you actually dive into it really, and you learn about it, confidence is just a knowing. It's just knowing what you can do, and when you get yourself into that place of, okay, I know what I'm good at, I know what I can do, you take away that whole up and down roller coaster of, if it's not going so well. From the outside, they might look at it and say, oh, he's not confident, but you're just going through kind of a rough patch, and those happen. When you know what you're good at, and okay, if I keep putting myself in these positions, I keep getting my shots off, I keep making these runs, eventually it will turn, because I know within myself what I can do and what I'm good at. Then it's not necessarily it's anything to do with confidence. It's just you're continually doing the work that you need to do, and you'll get the results from it. It's almost like a numbers game, so to speak. And yeah, that varies from person to person. Some people need to do certain things to make sure they're feeling confident, or they're in that knowingness of themselves. But yeah, for me, it's always just, having those reset triggers, and kind of reflecting, and looking at, okay, performance, this is what goes well. I know I've done everything I needed to do. Okay, I've scored today, great. Next week I haven't scored. Have I done everything I knew I needed to do to build up? Yeah. Okay, great. It was just one of those days. We move on and we go on to the next one. And it's just that knowing in yourself that it really needs to be strong, because a lot of people will try and kind of not poke at you, maybe not intentionally, but especially at the top level in football, it's any mistake is scrutinized, and you're getting pelters. So you really need to have that sureness in yourself and that knowing.
I absolutely agree. And I think, as football has evolved and changed over the years, and the more and more accessible it becomes, so to speak, especially at that elite level in terms of content, everything is overanalyzed, to the point of it could literally be that, a striker just mishit the ball, but all of a sudden he's short in confidence and he hasn't made the run, or he hasn't done this and he hasn't done that. And, when Monday Night Football closes off the air, when the game goes off, there's 2 hours of analytics, and sometimes it's a bit over analytical, and I enjoy that stuff. But I think as a player, sometimes getting out of your own head, maybe, if I can word it that way, is maybe key. And have you ever been a victim of perhaps over analyzing yourself, or maybe
Yeah,
demanding more?
yeah. I think that is a part of it. I think you need to kind of draw the line, and back to that point again. Every player is different. Some players need to have that extra detail or that extra understanding, but you can't overdo it, and you can't start to get in your own way of things. And I think that the biggest thing, for me, over the years, I've only started to understand it more, of being in flow and being present. And that to me is you getting out of your own way. And I think one of the best things my dad ever said to me, and he gave it to me a bit later on in my career, and I wish I had it early on, but he says, play the ball at its own merit. And to me, it's massive, because sometimes you go into games after you've analyzed, and after, if you're listening to any of that kind of external noise, you start to build up in your head and think, okay, I need to play this, or I need to do this, I need to do that. But then on the day, things just happen in a way that you have to be present and deal with. And if you're in your over analytical in your mind, you miss that opportunity
Mhm.
that just presented itself, and you're not present with what's happening at that time. So, being in flow and being present, and playing the ball at its own merit, is a really powerful saying that I kind of take into me in every game now. Because yeah, you can prep all you want, and plan all you want, but on the day, things happen, and you just have to be present and deal with it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. And I think, you made a really great point there. You said you wished your dad gave you that advice just a little bit earlier in your career, because it's so good and it's so valuable. And as we begin to wrap up, one of the questions I love to ask is, if you could give any piece of advice, you're coaching at the minute, you're working with a lot of different footballers. If you could give one piece of advice, and throughout this entire podcast, there's been golden nuggets and words of wisdom from you that anyone can apply to their footballing career. But if you could pinpoint one piece of advice that you could give to a young player, or an aspiring professional, or a kid starting out in his career that wants to go pro, what piece of advice would you give that person?
Yeah, man, there's so many, but I think for me, if I was looking back at myself and trying to give myself the tips, I would kind of ask the player, the person, to focus on what they're good at, um, and know who they are, know what their game is, and then kind of, whatever level you're looking to aspire to, start to build on those foundations, build on those strengths, and get the right kind of habits and routines in from early, because that's what can give you longevity, and give you a career. It's having the right foundations, the right routines, and the right habits. And I think when I say knowing yourself as a player, that's also knowing your body, knowing what works for you. There's loads out there, like I said, with training and nutrition and all that stuff. But unless you know what works for your body, that's what's going to give you that kind of, extra edge in 1%. So, in terms of knowing yourself as a player, knowing your body, what works, and getting in those routines and habits. The last thing on top of that is repetition, man. I was lucky enough to have a kind of seminar done from a goalkeeping coach that came to Rushden Diamonds, and it was on one of those old kind of projector screen presentations. I'll never forget it because I was like, 17, 16. And he just had one word on a slide, and it was repetition. And he started to speak about how, Ryan Giggs, David Beckham, all of them, all he did with those players in that Man United team was just repetition, repetition, repetition. And that is what, gets you that kind of confidence and that belief and that knowing, is because you've done it so many times. It becomes automatic in games. So, yeah, I mean, those are a few nuggets in there. It's not necessarily one thing, but if we're trying to focus on that one thing, just know yourself as a player and build on your strengths, man, because no matter what, you're going to come across a lot of different coaches, a lot of different playing styles, whatever, but unless you know your strengths to impact games and have that foundation to build on, it can be really, really challenging. So that would be my tip.
Yeah, it's phenomenal advice. Knowing yourself, it's having that discipline, it's building that good habits, and obviously building those good habits at as young an age as possible. That goes with you throughout your career, knowing how to train, what way to train, to take training seriously and professionally, to even take, you mentioned using the Matchfit 90-day program, at the outset, using that program or using your individual time, your time away from football to improve yourself, whether that be physically, whether that be mentally. Just there's so many little ways you can increase in that 1%, and I think it's phenomenal. And I'm a bit envious of the boys you get to coach. I wish I had that when I was a kid. I wish I had someone with your knowledge, with your expertise, with your experience, as well. All that thrown in. But Simeon, as we begin to wrap this up as well, I want to continue to follow your journey. So I follow you on social media. I encourage all of our listeners to do the same thing. You're on Instagram, you're on Twitter. Is there anything else that you're involved in social media wise that we need to be aware of, that we should be following?
Yeah. So I'm just getting involved with an amazing project, which is kind of my baby. And it's called ProVantage, and it's going to be launching pretty soon. And it's just about kind of giving that platform for young aspiring athletes to connect with pro athletes. Connecting with likes of myself and other players out there that will be able to go out there and give tips, but also be able to deliver camps and education to help players. So that's going to be coming out soon, so I'm really looking forward to that. But yeah, that's all going to be on my social media pages. My Twitter is at Jackson Simeon, and my Instagram, which we'll add in here. But yeah, man, for me, it's like you said, I just wanted to have access to a professional player to ask questions and know what it actually takes. So doing stuff like this with you guys, and just to repay you guys for the help that you've helped me in my career in those tough times, is what it's about for me. So yeah, I'm just extremely grateful to have this opportunity.
We're extremely grateful for you, obviously, to give of your time and your energy and your wisdom, for our listeners, and for you guys that are listening to this. Remember, Simeon's been a great advocate of the products. We're not doing this as a sales pitch. That's not what this is about. But Simeon has been a great advocate of the products at Matchfit Football, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. Check it out. Drop a DM. Ask any questions you want. The guys will respond to you. You will get expert advice. So I recommend doing that, of course. But Simeon, this has been a brilliant, chat. It's been quick, but it's been informative. It's been excellent. So again, thank you so much for your time.
Nice one, Dan. Cheers, man.